Hi everyone and welcome to another video. In this video I'm gonna show you how easy it is to clear coat jointed lures, and we're starting right now. First of all, I always put rubber bands in between the joints. That's for several reasons. That is not only to protect the joints from any clear coat that will be seeping through, it also immobilizes my lure. As you can see, it doesn't move no more, the joints don't work no more because the rubber band blocks this. This is way easier to paint, way easier to handle, and also easier to clear coat afterwards. But of course, before I clear coat this lure, I have to paint it. Right, so I painted my lure, now it's time to put on a clear coat. First I'm gonna quickly explain my setup, which is just a plastic storage box with a little bit of electricity to hook up the lights. And on this side I installed a simple grill rotisserie. Look on the inside. I glued on aluminium foil on the entire inside of the box. And that's because I am using UV resin, and that silver tin foil is going to reflect that UV light everywhere so that the lure cures properly and even as well. And if we look on the inside of our box, I got 4 UV lights, and here goes the rotisserie. These kind of holders used to hold meat in place, but I bended all those hooks so that I could use these kind of springs, so I can hook on the lure and it's nice and tight and it's ready to rotate. But it's very important to know that you can use this kind of setup, it doesn't need to be the same, for any kind of clear coat as well. The most important thing is that you got a rotisserie or something that rotates, preventing that the clear coat would run into the joints. That's the most important thing. It's just, this is my setup. I wanted to show you guys how it looks like and how I use it. And I really like UV resin because it cures pretty quickly, so you can go fishing on the same day with your lure. So now I'm gonna hook up my lure, and because of the rubber bands on the lure, it is not as flexible and it makes it a lot easier to clear coat, so it doesn't bend in every direction. It's always a trial and error how I place my lure in there. I always have to test stuff and see what works the best for any lure. Now the other lure that's hanging here, that's just counterbalance, or else if I only put one lure on there, that rotisserie is gonna drop down every time when the weight goes down. So to counter that, I just have a lure on the other side, so the weight is nice and evenly and it turns around nice and even as well. So now it's time to put on our clear coat, and there is only one thing that's really important, and that is to use thin layers, not too much. And if you keep away from the joints, usually it's not a problem and nothing will run into the joints. If you use too much of your clear coat, that clear coat might look for a way to run away, and if it ends up in a joint, that might be a little bit difficult to get out. But still, even if it runs into a joint, you can try and cut it out with a fine knife or even carve it out with a little drill. It is still manageable, but preferably it just doesn't happen. And the best way to prevent this is just by using thin layers. I always like to turn on my rotisserie while I'm clear coating, so that the clear coat that I put on there already starts spreading out and is not gonna run into any of the joints. This process takes a little longer, but it prevents me from putting any clear coat into the joints. Also, the rubber bands are gonna catch any clear coat that might wander off into the joints, because the clear coat doesn't adhere well to rubber, and not much of the clear coat is gonna get past the rubber bands. And if everything looks good, I put on my lights and I close the box. And I let it cure for about 20 minutes. Now that the first layer is dry, I always like to apply a second one. Now the timing and how you apply a second layer of clear coat, that always depends on the brand and the kind of clear coat you're using. Especially with UV resin, some of these UV resins need to be cleaned first before you can put on a second coat. But this one works really well when you put on a second one right after the other one, because it's still a little bit tacky and that makes it all become one solid clear coat. And now that our clear coat is dry, we can start removing our rubber bands and the kind of attachments as well in this case. Now when you take off these rubber bands and for this spring as well, it is really important that you cut the resin that is connected to it, because if I would try to pull this off like this, the resin might break somewhere else on my lure, and that's gonna damage my entire clear coat, and we don't want that. So it's very important that you always cut there where you want your clear coat to break off. I want my clear coat to break there, so I'm gonna try to make a big cut as possible. It's not gonna be perfect, and that's because this is my mistake. This shouldn't have been that close to the body. It should have been more upwards so that it would not touch the body, so you would not get a clear coat in between there. That's my mistake, but it's easily solved. There we go. It comes out nice and clean. Very important when you remove rubber bands. You can see that the resin has connected with the rubber band here, so I need to cut that first before I remove that rubber band, or else the resin might break at some other point, which I don't want, because that's not gonna be a clean clear coat. I always check if the joints have any resin or any other blockage, because I want them to be able to move as freely as possible. That's very important. And there we go, perfectly clean joints and a really nice clean coated jointed lure. And it is as simple as that. It's not difficult at all. Alright everyone, our lure is finished, and as you can see, these are perfectly clean joints. There is no resin in there, and that's how easy it is to clear coat a jointed lure. And this can have as many joints as it wants. It doesn't matter. It's the same technique, and you can do it with basically any kind of clear coat, as long as you got something that rotates from keeping that clear coat to run down into the joints. And that is how simple it is. And I hope this video helps those who are struggling with clear coating jointed lures. Thank you for watching, have a nice day, and see you next time. Bye bye.